Are you talking about the end of paragraph F?
Yeah.
Where it's just a note to myself? Yeah. I'll get rid of that. Thank you.
Good eye, Carl. All right, all approved?
Thank you.
All right. At this point, we will open up the floor for public comment. Melissa, has anyone come forward?
Yes, we have one individual tonight who has signed up for public comments.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Carl Ernesto. I am here to give you one good news. There is a new charter school in the area, which is available to campus students, and I'm sure you have fun to you define it. It is the Seacoast Classical Academy, which is a K-8 grade, tuition-free, New Hampshire public school regarding of state board of education. Start the operations on August 25th of this year. The operating funds are provided by the student entitlement under Article 193, Iowa Education Statute, not by home district funds. The base cost for students for 2023 is $4,100, increased to a maximum of $9,300, depending on the student. Students with specific needs for those residing outside New Hampshire. Good. Now I can hear myself.
There we go.
Should I start again, or you're
Yeah,
okay?
You can go ahead and start again.
Okay. The base cost per student is $4,100, up to a maximum of $9,300. This is money that comes from the state, not from the district. But for those residing outside New Hampshire, the tuition is $14,500. Although the academy is limited to K through 8th grade this year, plans are to expand to 9 to 12 in the coming years. The current enrollment is 178 students, a maximum of 242 students. First grade is full, but there are open spaces in all the other grades. The special education, the student homeschool district is responsible for the provision of special education services. The parents retain all their rights regarding special education plans, and the academy role is to cooperate with the special education decisions of the parents and the homeschool district, so there's no problem there. The location, the academy is located in Newton at 53 Carlton East Sockwell Way in the former middle school addition of the Sanborn Regional School District, which is a short 15 to 20-minute drive from Hampstead. Bus transportation is available for K-5 students who reside in the Sanborn Regional School District, which is Kingston and Newton only. There is no bus transportation available outside of Sanborn. Carpooling, the academy will offer enrolled families the option to carpool. The facilities operate in at least 18,000 square foot schoolhouse with outdoor play spaces amid woods in a residential neighborhood close to Route 125 in Newton, New Hampshire. You should see it. The school day is from 8:20 to 2:45 for all the scholars, including the middle schoolers. Having the same start and dismissal days for all the school scholars optimizes accessibility for our families. Before and after care is also available on site. Uniforms are mandatory. This is different. The dress code relieves the scholars of clothing decisions, mitigates peer pressure, and promotes a shared culture. To prevent dress code from becoming a barrier to enrollment, the academy will maintain a uniform swap collection of garments and will offer to provide a uniform package to each scholar families who demonstrate title funding eligibility. Security is provided by a police officer of the Newton Police Department who is assigned full-time to the campus located with neighbors, the Memorial Elementary School, and Seacoast Learning Collaborative. This officer is available to respond to an emergency at Seacoast Classical Academy. All three schools have their own separate secure buildings. Furthermore, Seacoast Classical will add security improvements to the schoolhouse, for example, a secure vestibule for its entrance. Now for the fun part.
Jorge, a reminder, there's a 3-minute limit on speaking.
Sir?
There's a 3-minute limit on public
There's no way that I
comment
can
per,
cover this.
per individual.
Let me give it to you real. Okay, do you want me to tell you what it is? Or you want to read it from the brochure?
You can finish. I'm just letting you know the
Okay.
policy.
Yeah, I just have a page to go. Okay, now, what is classical education? There's 3 central elements of classical education: knowledge, understanding, and critical thinking. And the classical education emphasizes narratives, skills, and dispositions. Conventional education offers the emphasis of objective knowledge in favor of subjective narratives. Conventional education provides training in skills, where classical education spark not only skill, but also a broad understanding of humanity and nature through examinations and synthesis. The curriculum is the Hillsdale College K-12 curriculum, a well-rounded classical curriculum designed for use in charter schools. It includes mathematics, English and language arts, science, history and geography, foreign languages, art and music, and physical education. The mathematics component is the Singapore math curriculum, in which students think through concepts and apply them in new ways from the very start. The literacy curriculum is literary essentials, which is a phonics-based multisensory approach to teach beginning reading. You can read that in your brochure. The foreign languages, they'll start with Spanish in kindergarten. In 4th and 5th grades, we'll study Greek and Latin roots for English etymology. In grade 6 and 8, they'll study Latin. There are multiple compelling reasons for studying Latin. You can read that in the handout. Mathematics, the Singapore math and the Saxon math are 2 popular curricula with distinct approaches. Singapore math emphasizes critical thinking and visual learning, while Saxon math focuses on breaking down concepts into smaller parts with a heavy emphasis on review. Both have their strengths. Singapore math focuses on mastery and problem solving, while Saxon is known for its incremental approach and constant review of previous material. Okay, I'll skip some of this, and I'll give you some more. I can forward my notes to you. Classical schools can navigate the mathematics maze with confidence, providing students with a solid foundation in mathematical literacy and critical thinking. Let's look at the brochure quickly. Okay, on the left pocket, you have the vision, mission, and virtues of Seacoast Classical Academy. You can read that. And then in the second page, you have a charter from the State Board of Education. You've never seen it, okay?
All right. Thank you, Jorge. That's the 10 minutes of time now.
Okay, so you can read the brochure, and the curriculum overview is there, which you should read. It's very detailed. And then you have that's it. So it is available to you. I can get you all the information you need, and any student is welcome. Just contact them. The information is the brochure, phone numbers, etc. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Jorge. I'd never heard about Singapore math before, so that's interesting. I said I hadn't heard of Singapore math before, so I found that
Very few.
Okay. Moving on to school highlights with Dr. Cheney.
All right, good evening. I just wanted to start with a quick enrollment update. We currently have 472 students enrolled at the Central School, split fairly equitably amongst the grade levels. We have a small cohort at 1st grade, but the rest of our grade levels are in the low 90s, and 4th grade's a little bit low as well, in the low 80s. Last week, our 1st graders celebrated International Dot Day. And International Dot Day is a day that's inspired by a story by Peter H. Reynolds called The Dot. And this story encourages people, children, adults, anyone, to make their dot and make their mark on the world. It was really sweet. One of our first grade classes in Mrs. Remelard's group partnered with our fourth graders in Miss Morin's class. They're Husky buddies, and they meet regularly throughout the school year, and they collaborated to make dots that are representative of their uniqueness in the school, and they're posted in our hallways now. Our fall assessments have begun. Our students are engaging in the Acadians assessment, which assesses early reading skills, and the iReady assessments, which assess both math and reading. We find that administering these assessments early on in the school year really helps our teachers get a baseline of where our students are entering their new school year, and allows us to be responsive to student needs. We will be having our first data week next week, where teachers will be reviewing all of this data and talking about what exactly it is our students need, and starting to build Win What I Need groups for the fall. Our teachers are engaging in a math pilot this year. 2 years ago, we reviewed our ELA curriculum. This year, we're reviewing our math curriculum. So we have one representative from each grade level currently piloting. They'll pilot 2 programs this year, but they're starting with a program called Eureka Squared. So they're a couple weeks into that, and they're getting their materials together and working with their students in that. They'll do the first 3 modules, and then they'll swap over to a second program, Ready Math, which is an iReady product. And then at about March-ish, they'll start to figure out which one makes the most sense for our students for next year. We had a wonderful celebration on September 11th. Our Read with a Hero is in its 22nd year at the Hampstead Central School. And this year we welcomed a record number of readers. We had 23 readers, which we have about 24 classrooms, so that's enough for every classroom. But some classrooms had multiple because it was a grandfather, an uncle, an aunt, a sister, or a friend that was in that classroom. So that was really lovely. So I just wanted to take a minute to say a special thank you to Adam Van Horn, Stephen Wallen, Jonathan Hood, Adam Howe, Rachel Shanahan, Tom Young, Tyler Byrne, Sal Melee, Howie Stedman, Stephen Winter, Bob Kelly, Adam Dyer, Brian Lamontagne, Scott Randall, Maura Wentworth, Mike O'Neill, Chris Dane, Will Warnock, Catherine Warnock, Nicholas Manette, Jim Prince, John Earnshaw, and Jim Gunter. They all gave their time to join us on this day and to keep a tradition alive, connecting our students with community heroes. The thing on everybody's mind at our school right now is the building project. They are working hard to conclude that over the next few weeks. There have been some interruptions to our classrooms with some noise and things like that. Last Friday, BPS did reach out and they let me know it was going to be a little bit noisy between 9 and 10. So during that time, we were able to relocate the classrooms to minimize the disruption to their learning. The temporary library space is open in the 1940s wing, and students are able to come in and browse and check out books. However, the lessons of library and the read-alouds and the interaction with our librarian are occurring in the classroom, since the temporary library is just too small to properly host a lesson. It fits the books, but not enough space for students to have a seat. I also just wanted to mention that applications are open for volunteering, so anybody that is interested in coming in and being a designated volunteer with us is welcome and encouraged to reach out. And if folks are already designated volunteers, they do not need to reapply. So that is still good year over year. But anybody new to our school and any first grade parents interested in attending the Odeorn trip or ski club or lunch buddies, please reach out and we will get you vetted. And finally, I just wanted to mention that we celebrated National Grandparent Day last week, and we celebrated our wonderful Grammys. So we partner with the Foster Grandparent Program. I know we've spoken about that here at the board before, and so we just wanted to make sure we thanked Deb, Ann, Ellen, and Claudia for all their work, and the kids loved being able to celebrate them on that day. Are there any questions?
On the assessments,
Yeah.
is there my question is, when do teachers receive the results of the assessments versus the families?
Yep, so teachers receive those pretty immediately, especially on iReady. It scores it right away, and they can see their class profile even as it's developing. So if, student A finishes first, they can see student A's score, and as the rest of the students come in, they're seeing that. So teachers will go through that as an entire grade level and look at their class details next week, and then scores should be able to be sent home by mid-October at the latest.
And can you kind of speak to what it looks like if you do identify students that are at risk on those scores?
Yeah, so the teachers have benchmarks that they're looking for students to achieve, and if students are falling below those benchmarks, we're engaging in conversations about where are those areas that we need to target to help close that gap for a student and bring them closer to the benchmark. This year we are really narrowing in on reading. With the recent dyslexia law coming into play, there's a significant amount of accountability around that. So our teachers will engage in conversations around reading. We also use the Acadians in tandem with iReady to look at those two sets of scores. So for any student that is below benchmark or in the at-risk category, they will receive a targeted intervention at least 4 days a week for 25 minutes a day.
Great. Any comments
Yeah.
or questions for Dr. Cheney?
Sorry. Do you have intervention times in your master's schedule, and are they separate for math and reading?
Yeah, so I actually have 3 intervention times in our master's schedule. I have a reading time and a math time, and then what we are calling an open what I need time. And so that is for a student who may need reading support and math support, and may also have speech and OT. So that way they're not missing core content, that they can get what they need at those various times. We're also looking this year, and I don't want to spoil it, but to include like our SEL work in that as well, because that's what some students need, is that additional support from our counseling team. Yeah.
I'll just say for Reading with a Hero, knowing a lot of the people on this
Yeah.
list is so cool, I think, for the kids to see of, friends' parents, people that you see in the grocery store, people that you see out in our small town are the heroes in our town. So I think that's just an awesome opportunity, and I'm psyched to see how many people were there, because it really shows, how many awesome people we have in our town that did really significant things. All right. Any other questions or comments for Dr. Cheney?
No.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. But am I staying?
And yes, yeah. And she turns.
right.
All right. We are moving into MTSSB at HCS.
Wonderful. So as I mentioned before, this is definitely work that we are focusing on, and our big push this year is to make sure that we have our MTSSB systems set up, accessible for students and staff, and clear to all of those folks. We have an MTSSB an MTSSB committee in our building, and the number of staff who volunteered to participate in this work is really evidence of the timeliness of this work. So the MTSSB team has met once this school year, and they are working, their purpose for this year is to foster a positive and inclusive learning environment by implementing proactive, evidence-based strategies to address social, emotional, and behavioral needs of all students. They're really working hard to develop that continuum and those tiered interventions. What does it look like for all students? What do all students need to access and should have access to? And then what tiers do we need to put into place to target the needs of students who may need a little bit more? So they want to enhance student engagement in order to reduce discipline issues and to promote that culture of respect and accountability. And at the end of the day, as our mission statement says, we want every child to succeed academically and behaviorally in a safe school setting. So last year, our MTSSB team did an initial review. A few years ago, our counseling team had worked together to develop a Husky behavior matrix. And this indicated what were expected behaviors in various areas of our school. What does it look like to be a good Husky citizen in the hallway, or in a classroom, or on the playground? And so the MTSSB team is reviewing that now that it's been a couple of years to take a peek. Is this still relevant? Are there changes and things that need to be made? as well as a tiered response to intervention. So they're taking a peek at that in light of how we're developing our systems. Last year, our team also had a MTSSB report that was developed by Janine Richards. And so this year they've had an opportunity to review some of those recommendations. And a couple of those recommendations included exploring teacher-instructed SEL. So prior to this year, our school counselor has been providing the bulk of our Tier 1 SEL lessons. What that means is she's not as readily available to support students in crisis or even to work on some preventative work, like I mentioned, for students who need additional support, like a child might need in reading, but they may need it behaviorally. So this year, our teachers engaged in some professional development around Second Step. Second Step is our Tier 1 SEL curriculum, and they are beginning to teach it within their classroom. The power behind this is that as the teachers know and understand the language of the program, they can coach students in the moment. It's more than just a 130-minute a week lesson. It really is embedded into their classroom culture. So if a student is having a conflict, they can prompt with the language of problem-solving steps that's taught in the lesson and really share that with the kiddos. Each teacher's been given a buddy teacher to be able to work on that with, because that is a new piece for this year, so they're working in teams on that. The report also recommended that we explore trauma-informed behavior approaches, and we are doing that work as a district this year. We're looking, working with Charlie Applestein at the beginning of the year. We've worked with Janine Richards before. We've brought in trauma-informed specialists if we need them to support or consult on individual cases for students to make sure that we're responding in the most supportive, educational way possible. At the end of the day, we want to make sure that we're teaching the preferred behavior as opposed to the more maladaptive behavior. And then the report also suggested that making sure those systems are in place for students to enter and exit. So in our MTSS-A system, we are so good at reading that data and seeing which students are below benchmark and need that additional support, entering them into a 6 or 8 week or 10-week intervention, collecting new data and seeing what the outcome is. Do they go back for another intervention cycle, or are they back in the classroom? With MTSS-B, it's a little less obvious. The data that we have is a little bit different. It's things like office referrals, attendance, nurse visits is another good source of data for social and emotional feelings. And so this year we're going to start to put in some systems so we can really look at, is this intervention of working with the counselor for 6 weeks, is that helping to improve what we're seeing? Is it improving the school attendance? Is it reducing the behavior referrals for those students? And so working with the counseling team to really define what that looks like, what do goals look like during those intervention cycles, and how do we measure progress and success. And then another challenge not noted in the report, but that we've been wrestling with at the central school, is a real increase that we've noted in student dysregulation. Students are coming to school and they're struggling for a variety of reasons. School can be overstimulating, it can be a new experience. And so our team is also looking at how do we support proactively as opposed to reactively those students who are struggling in that regard. And that's, I receive feedback from parents, from staff, and even from students about how do we continue to develop that. So one of the things that we're looking at is developing a regulation space in the building where students can access that prior to being so dysregulated that they need a big intervention, but a quiet, calming space that they can utilize. So our SEL team sent me a bunch of recommendations last week for how we can support our students in that regard. So those are some of the highlights about our MTSSB work for this year. What questions do you have?
So for that Husky initiative that you spoke about, what are some ways that you, or are there plans that you, where you plan on rolling that out and basically educating the students on what good behaviors are, what it looks like to be a good citizen?
Yeah, so as the MTSSB team takes a look at that, and depending on where we land with what that looks like, a few years ago, what we did was we took some photos of students, for example, in the cafeteria. Cafeteria is a hot button place, right? That's a busy, busy area. So we were able to take pictures and make some posters of what did expected behavior look like in the cafeteria. So when you do something like that, you get this like double win on it, right? The students who are demonstrating that are so proud of themselves, and then they're up on the wall and their friends are going, hey, look, Gabby knows exactly what to do. She's carrying her tray safely. She's sitting with her feet on the ground. And so to do some work like that and to integrate that. In the past, we've had monthly assemblies, and so that could be work that we integrate into that as well as we talk about our good citizenship. And I didn't mention our book vending machine, but that's certainly a part of this as well that we can utilize to encourage. Oh, this month we're looking for safe hallway behavior instead of good friendship or cooperation or whatever the skill may be.
Great. And I am pleased to hear that you're strongly kind of considering the dysregulation and trying to be proactive about it and kind of see the signs before the things happen. Rich, you had questions?
Yeah, so first of all, I love that there are structures coming into place. I love that teachers are talking about it, staff is involved. I'm new to MTSS in New Hampshire, and I had never heard of it referred to as A and B until I got on the school board, and I'm like, what the heck is this? This doesn't make sense. MTSS is an umbrella. Why are we dividing it? So I think what I want to make sure of, like as a parent, is there a structure that exists in which the A team and the B team communicate? Because we know that impact on academics happens due to behavior, and impact with behavior happens due to academics. So do they talk back and forth?
So yes, we have bi-weekly MTSS team meetings with each grade level. And so at that table, we do have either kid talk conversations about specific students that may need a little bit extra, or global conversations. Right now we have a grade level that is having some troubles at recess. And so the conversation at the table for an individual student can be, you know what, and I'm gonna say Gabby, that's my daughter, so that's the name I always use. So it's not a real Gabby, it's my Gabby. So if somebody brings Gabby, for example, to the table and says, you know what, Gabby's math scores just aren't what I would be expecting right now. That's sort of unusual. And as we're talking through at that table, we have the players like the school counselor if need be. We have our reading specialist. We typically have somebody from our student services team that can all consult, and they can ask the right questions to get to just what you're saying, to say, tell me about Gabby. Is there anything new for her? Oh, well, you know what? They just moved to New Hampshire. So that might be part of why we're seeing some of these dips. You know what? Instead of a reading intervention or a math intervention right now, maybe she needs something from Mrs. Chrissa to feel safe, secure at school, and hopefully we would also see those rise. So we do have those conversations at the table with the relevant players there.
No, that's awesome, and I love hearing of the kind of the positive behavior system stuff that's going on, and I'd echo the a space for regulation.
Yeah.
I think being proactive is important, because what we want to avoid is having a timeout space. So,
Yes.
all right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm just going to bounce off the regulation piece. I also think that's awesome. Is there talk about having a regulation space inside the classroom so kids aren't leaving the classroom?
Yes, so each teacher is working to put together a calm corner. And our SEL team, they came to me, they're like, the great news is the teachers are so excited. The other news is that so are the special educators and the unified arts teachers, and so we've got to figure out a way to support them in getting those calm corners. So the team is ready to move forward with that. And so yes, having a space in each of the classrooms, because even if you're just taking a minute for yourself, you can still be hearing the lesson. It would be preferred if they can be in the classroom.
So in the idea of punishment versus restorative, normally punishment is you did this, you get this. Can you kind of explain or give an example of what the difference is?
Yes.
Not to put you on the spot.
Nope, that's okay. I'm trying to think, I love to explain like an actual example or, something that I can imagine in my head. So I guess I just want to say that there is room for both consequences and restorative conversations. So one part of when a student has a challenging behavior is certainly to restore their relationship with the people that may have been impacted by that. And that could be the teacher, it could be a peer in the classroom, it could be a para, it could be somebody just walking down the hall. And they work to restore that relationship or repair whatever harm was done. It could be as easy as kicking over a Lego tower, right? And so now you've upset your friend, you need to repair the relationship and help them rebuild the tower. So we try to lean into natural consequences as much as possible, especially for young children. That makes the most sense. However, if a student does violate those norms of the classroom, there may be a need for additional consequence. And in elementary school, we sort of do a step-up process, a progressive discipline process, I guess, if you will, where we are starting at that lower level and then increasing as much as we can to keep that as relevant to the students as possible. But if need be, we would have to enact some consequences that could include recess or time out of community or things of that nature.
So like if you had a student that throws his lunch on the floor and makes
Yeah.
a mess, instead of taking away his recess, you might have him clean it up and apologize to the custodian or something like that?
Correct, and part of that may be during recess when we're working to clean that up, because what we're always trying to do too is to preserve dignity and all those pieces, and so to clean up in front of everybody, it might pause until we clean up after friends have gone and we can have a minute to talk to the custodian about the impact. Oh boy, that took me an extra 5 or 10 minutes, and so now that means I'm behind on this, and they can have that restorative conversation while also repairing the damage.
That's awesome. That's a really good process. Thank you.
Great.
That's loud. My background as a teacher was in middle school education, but to walk through the central school and visit classrooms and see the constant proactive strategies that teachers are putting in place, so there's these constant movement breaks where teacher, scans the room and realizes kids are getting a little antsy. Okay, we're going to put on this 2-minute video where everyone's going to get up and we're going to, act like an animal in the zoo, and then they can refocus. Also, breathing exercises. We see that, some of the students are getting a little heated. We're just going to sit here for 2 minutes. We're going to focus on breathing. There's such an intentionality to sort of redirecting behaviors that you might be seeing in a few students in the classroom, but they're really good for sort of universally for everybody. I can tell you time and time again, I walk through classrooms and I see evidence of this all over the place. So what that results in is the kid that's not throwing the lunch because the teacher was on sort of the proactive side. That's not to say that, they're not dealing with very challenging behaviors, but I see they're very skilled at that redirection piece.
And if you have 3 kids that are looking like they're ready to not do what they need to do, you may have even more. I like that.
Exactly.
Proactive and
Yeah, I can tell you the breathing exercises and the movement breaks help me regulate, so I can imagine what it would do for an 8-year-old. So
You heard that, Aaron. You can make them do movement breaks.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Cheney.
Great. Thank you very much.
Appreciate the work you're doing. All right, moving on to suicide prevention protocol with Melissa McDonald, Director of Student Services. And HSD social worker Julie Barbick.
Not to be forgotten. Good evening. I'm pleased to have our district social worker, Julie Barbick, here with me to review an overview of the Hampstead School District Suicide Prevention Plan as drafted by a team of professionals last school year. In February of 2023, the school district did approve the suicide prevention and response policy, and part of that is to come up with a written plan. Julie is here to review that and to answer any questions that you may have prior to adopting this.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. My goal for being here today is to discuss our proposed district suicide prevention plan and answer any questions from the board. This plan was developed in accordance with policy JLBDD, our district suicide prevention policy, and as to maintain compliance with New Hampshire State Law RSA 193J, which mandates schools to mobilize suicide prevention efforts, which include staff training, student education, and the development of a system of student mental health support and crisis intervention. This plan was developed using research from best practices around student mental health and safety, and it outlines the various processes we already have in place in this district. Essentially, this plan serves as a framework for the district for how we not only proactively address the mental health needs of students, but also outlines our practices and protocols to address active student mental health and safety concerns. This plan discusses the various roles and responsibilities of those professional staff who serve on the building level mental health teams and details our organized response in crisis situations. The plan highlights risk factors, warning signs, as well as protective factors on an individual, family, and community level. This allows us to understand when our students need our help and guides our response and intervention. The plan emphasizes safe messaging, which is a research-based approach to how we can talk safely about mental health and suicide. And the plan encourages help-seeking behavior, connection to resources, and promotes a wraparound approach to addressing student mental health that includes parents, guardians, caregivers, and community providers in the mental health care of our students. The plan also discusses how we structure social, emotional, and mental health support within our schools using our teams to provide services using a tiered intervention system. Finally, the plan outlines a system of response that would be initiated in the aftermath of a suicide. As a district, ensuring the safety and well-being of our students is our #1 priority, and we recognize that we have a responsibility to proactively address student mental health. We are dedicated to continuing to prioritize the mental health and safety of our students. Any questions from the board?
Training do we have, or do counselors have to assess if a student may be in danger of self-harm?
Yeah, that's a really great question. So every member on the building mental health teams is a counselor, social worker, or school psychologist, and as part of our training to be in this position, we need to complete our required courses as part of our graduate school programs. Some of us on this team also hold clinical licenses with the state of New Hampshire as well.
And then if something like that comes up, are parents notified if there's suspicion, or if you have conversations with them, or what would that process look like?
Absolutely, and you will see in this plan a very detailed approach of how we involve parents, guardians, and caregivers in any conversation about safety. When we have a concern, we are immediately notifying families. They are part of the conversation, and they are part of the response to ensure the safety of our students. No student leaves this building without their parent, guardian, or caregiver being notified that we're worried about them. Oftentimes, we have a plan for a change in dismissal. We have parents come into the building, we have face-to-face conversations, we have phone conversations, but if we're worried about kids, they don't come home. They don't go home until we talk with the people who will receive them. Yep.
If a student has concerns about another student, how would they let someone know?
That's a really great question. So we promote help-seeking behavior. When we're talking with kids, we encourage them to find a safe adult in the building to communicate their concerns. It's very common that we're made aware of safety concerns through other students. Kids will come to myself, to their school counselor, and they'll say, Mrs. Barbick, I'm worried about my friend, and we can talk about that. There are times where students have a certain level of anxiety talking with a counselor about their concerns over a friend, and we partner with the student who's with us, and we help them to make a decision to support their friend by doing the safe thing, which is to talk to a safe adult.
Do we do anything with proactive messaging to the students, like an advisory, or like, if you guys have concerns, is there any sort of regular process where we try to proactively get people to have the conversations?
So students do receive support in their health classes around mental health, and in general, we promote a culture of help-seeking behavior through our conversations with students, and we encourage students to identify a safe, trusted adult in the school.
Okay. Thank you. That was excellent answers to the questions. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Questions? I definitely appreciate the thoroughness of this, really kind of covering all bases in terms of education, safe messaging, risk factors. Go for it.
So I don't think it's necessarily a question for you guys. It might be for Joe or for Bob. Do we have a mechanism in place to look at what students might be searching at home if they have their computer at home and they're looking at, okay.
Yeah,
Just
do we
wanna
want
make sure.
to, Joe, would you like to talk very briefly about that?
Yes, we have Securely being run for 24/7 support. When things come up like suicide or violence or anything like that, they get sent to groups that contain certain people involving the principal, assistant principal, and everyone else involved right away when it happens. A lot of times it may happen over the weekend when the kids have their devices, and first thing Monday morning they'll meet to discuss all those things.
And just a little anecdote to that as well. So we're planning for the new hire orientation this summer, and I had to talk with the new hires about school safety. And I realized that I'm creating a presentation and I'm doing some research and Googling things. I made sure to contact Joe to say, look, I'm going to be Google searching the following terms because it will get flagged. And I want to make sure that he knows it's for research purposes, but there's a very thorough filter.
I would like to add to that as well, if that's okay. When students are flagged for searching material online at home, that triggers a response from the technology department, and administration is notified. The counseling team is also typically notified as well. And we don't wait until the next school day to respond. We do respond immediately if we're concerned about safety. And the plan also details how we would respond to safety concerns that happen outside of school and off school hours, because as school professionals and as a district, we are responsible for the mental health and safety of our students at all times. So we are concerned, we respond whether it's midnight, whether it's 1 o'clock in the morning. We don't wait. If we're aware of the concern, we respond immediately. And sometimes we will utilize our outside community supports, such as Hampstead Police Department if we need to. But sometimes it could be a call from a counselor after hours. So we look at the situation, we assess, and we intervene appropriately to the situation to support our students. So.
Exactly what I wanted to do.
Yep.
And I'll also add too, and Julie alluded to this, that the statute requires that all school personnel have 2 hours of training in suicide prevention annually. A lot of districts have pre-recorded presentations, online presentations. Primex, our insurance provider, has a program. We see that as sort of the minimum standard, and we actually have our people, our trainers through the National Alliance on Mental Illness, NAMI. They're what's called Connect trainers, and Julie's a trainer. Our counselors are trainers. I'm a trainer as well. So our people get 2 hours of an in-person training. And the feedback that we've gotten from our folks is like it's a really, really heavy topic. And I think that they appreciate the fact that it's done by one of their colleagues, so that that we can build in time so that they can sort of debrief, because we've all in one way or another been impacted by suicide. We don't talk about this subject enough. There are children who die by suicide every year. It's not a topic that you see get a lot of media attention. They don't, for good reason, put it in the newspaper. And that's why the efforts of Julie and the other members of the mental health team, their job is to raise awareness, and we're doing it rather than the pre-recorded video.
I just have a really quick question. And Carl kind of asked the question in a way, but so given what has been going on with the bullying, which I know is being addressed, but
Yeah.
the mental health part of that and how the kids are feeling, like, is there something happening kind of to talk them through that and let them have like an open communication and try, or is there like a heightened awareness of like watching, I guess, right now? It's kind of a scary thing that's happening, you know, to these kids.
Of course. And the plan does outline the importance of looking at risk factors and warning signs. And it's important for our staff to be aware of bullying as a risk factor for mental health. We promote a culture of inclusivity and an anti-bullying climate at school. And that doesn't mean that there are not instances where bullying occurs, but we address it. We don't hide from it. We call it how it is. We seek help for those students, for both the child who's being victimized and also the child who is doing the bullying. And a lot of us, especially on the counseling team who work with a lot of these students, we care about the welfare of all students. We care about the welfare of the bullied. We want to make sure they're okay too. And we have the education and awareness to know that it becomes a cycle, and we do everything we can to break the cycle. Part of the work that we do, whether we're counselors or teachers, librarians, we try to be that one safe, trusted adult for our students, and it really just takes that one safe adult for a child who's being bullied to come in to me and say, Mrs. Barbic, this is what's happening to me, or to their librarian, or to their health teacher, or to their gym teacher, their art teacher. Whoever it is, that one safe adult can make a world of difference to our students. So it's our job to educate our staff, and that's part of New Hampshire state law, that's part of our school policy. This is why we do it, because we want our staff to understand this is the child who's struggling. They are showing us that they are hurting. They are demonstrating risk factors. They are demonstrating clusters of risk factors. This is part of the education that we're delivering, and it's being received. A lot of the safety concerns that we are made aware of come from teachers, comes from the classrooms. Statistically, it's the art teachers, it's the music teachers, who are the first to know when a kid is showing signs of depression or other various mental health conditions, and it's because those are classes where kids tend to feel safe and express themselves. So the education to staff is being delivered, and it's absolutely being received, and that's evident through conversations that we're having with staff and by the way that we're made aware of the concerns that we need to address.
Great, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Julie, could you talk a little bit about 988?
Sure. So 988 is a national service that can be used at any point in the country, and it is a 24/7 hotline that has recently replaced the National Suicide Prevention Hotline. So anyone, anywhere can call 988, and 988 will connect with that person's local area agency for mental health services. And services can be dispatched to where the individual is, or services can be connected for that individual to go into their local area agency to receive help. And we also put 988 on the back of our students' ID cards, and that is by law. And that's part of our responsibility to connect students and families to resources. So every child in the building has an ID with 988.
Great. Any other questions for Julie?
I don't, I just want to say thank you for your work on this. This is quite a document which is very important, and I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Board members, at this point, I'll be looking for a motion to approve the Hampstead School District Suicide Prevention Plan.
Second.
All approved? Okay.
Thank you for your support.
Thank you.
And can I just add, just let me embarrass Julie for a minute. So Julie is the school district social worker, also, coordinating our suicide prevention efforts. She's also the McKinney-Vento liaison. For people who are not familiar with McKinney-Vento is the federal law that provides protection for families in transition, or otherwise what we would call homeless families. And so Julie is so good at that work, because every community has homeless families or families in transition. Hampstead certainly has their fair share. This summer, Julie was appointed by the Department of Education to be the South Central lead liaison. And when you think about South Central, we are talking about the largest area in all of the state when it comes to places like Manchester, Derry, Londonderry, Salem, the list goes on. And it is Julie Barbick from Hampstead, New Hampshire, that gets the phone calls when people have a question about the laws and protections for our homeless students. So thank you, Julie, for that.
Thank you so much.
And I'm going to throw one more out there. So last year, the board was made aware that we had applied for a grant to get a student's assistant counselor. We learned that unfortunately we're on a wait list. We may get that. And so in conversations about being able to provide better mental health supports, we need more resources. Julie was able to secure not one, but two social worker interns that have joined our team and are helping to provide resources, mental health supports to students. And I just have to say that when you have two people who are coming into the field, getting experience working in school, getting their license, I can think of no better social worker to be able to train them. So Julie, we appreciate all the work that you do for the district.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Okay, moving on to the capital improvement plan with Director of Facilities Jeff Mackey.
All right, good evening. Now on to the most riveting part of your night. So there's going to be a lot of information on this, and I'm going to try to kind of give you a brief description on most of it to keep this going. A lot of the justifications, as you can see, most of it is either reason for the work having to happen is going to be end of life, nearing end of life, maintenance cycle, upgrade, replacement. In that general. I'll touch a little bit more in depth on a couple of these. For year one, 25-26, you will see I have fire alarm replacement. What that is, we have pull downs detectors, heat detectors. Currently, our middle school fire panel was having an issue. I am going to be replacing it in about 2 weeks. It is end of life, and working with our contractor, he recommended that we could get the panel in, he can hook everything up, but highly recommended that we upgrade after that all the accessories post panel. The next big ticket is the underground storage tank. Like we experienced at the central school, the middle school is going to be hitting 30 years old, and that is right around end of life, suggested end of life for a double wall steel tank, that's what we have. Next is the upgrade of our water filtration system, just the PFAS tanks. We have testing done every year at the middle school for our water because we're on well water. Our tanks are maintenanced every year. The softener is filled every year. We have a contractor that comes in to tweak anything we need. It came to our attention that our PFAS tanks are due for an upgrade, and we're going to be moving towards a resin tank that is a lot more durable, a lot more longer lasting, and just an improvement on what we have currently. Next, polished concrete floor. I usually do one a year. The girls' locker room is up next. Carpet replacement, I don't have as much on there. I usually try to get an entire wing done, but because of the oil tank, I'm trying to be a little strategic, and the preschool rooms are probably the two oldest carpeted rooms in the central school by now, and they're due for an upgrade. I have a very small section of roof. This I bring up, I put it on there, it's only $8,000. I generally put anything that's 10 or more on this list, but I wanted to put that on there because that was on my list, my previous 5-year plan last year, but after budget season, we ended up removing a few, and I was able to reassess, and that one section is in need of being replaced. It is beyond end of life. We've done some patches, and I had my roofing company look, and they said it's time for at least that section. So that's on there. And I will chime into this one in a second. It's leach bed replacement. We have at the central school and at the middle school 2 leach beds that are aging. The central school is 1986, I believe, 1985, 1986 is when it was put in. It's holding up well. I have had it tested in recent years, and it shows well, but being plumbing, a lot of unknowns underneath the ground, and it's ending near life. In 26, 27, we can jump down a little bit. You can see where I have phase 1 and phase 2. Not to go down the rabbit hole too much, the leach beds at Central School, we have 3 of them. They're 100 by 100 beds. They come off of a pumping station. They're all used evenly. It's a large system we have, very large. The middle school, we have 2 leach beds. Not sure why it was designed as it was, but that's how it is. The reason why I have it on here split up is to try to not put too much abuse on one year. So I have it in for next year in there, but I wouldn't be spending it till the following, like towards the end of the school year, to kind of get a head start on the septic. And then I would take the next year's budget to help pay off the rest of it. The work would most likely start at the end of school, but it would finish at the beginning of school. So the hope is to kind of try to take that burden off of, one massive lump sum to try to, evenly spread it across 2 budgets instead of 1, but to get the whole bed done. With that being said, I have a carpet replacement, 6th grade wing, adding mini splits to probably the hottest wing in the elementary school. We have portable units there, but they definitely help out. The teachers are very happy in those areas, but it doesn't quite do enough. And back to the fire panel replacement, this is now me phasing in the Central School as well. That panel is just as old, parts are obsolete. I'm hoping to get the panel in that year. And then if you hop to 27, 28, you will see that I added the fire alarm replacement for the parts, the pull downs, the detectors, the sensors, all that. As well as carpet for 5th grade and the stage here, leach bed replacement at middle school. Again, this is a much smaller bed. These 2 prices that I have in there are extremely rough. I reached out to several septic companies, one in town that I'm very, I have a history with, and they couldn't even really price it because they need a design. My hope is to I'm trying to work on getting 1 design this year, I'm trying to work through some of my budget and see if I can squeeze it in. If not, they're both going to definitely happen next year to get this designs in. That way we can get the ball rolling and I can get much firmer pricing. So these numbers that you see here are very rough. I did have one company give me an extreme ballpark price, so I kind of went off that, and I also reached out to fellow directors of facilities across New Hampshire to see if they've had any other better septic work, and one district wrote back, and it was a very tiny district. His bed was like 20 feet by 45, and I was like, all right, I don't have that. That's a good problem to have, I guess, while we have 3 that are 100 by 100. So those numbers, they may be lower, they may be more, and again, until we get it designed, we won't know fully. To continue in 27, 28, another polished concrete floor, and we also have our door alarm and motion sensor system. These are, at both schools, it seemed as though we put a lot of things in at the same years, about 30 years ago, 20 years ago. Things start to die around the same time, unfortunately, so I'm trying to patch what I can, make things last, and just phase in one school this year, one school that year, one school the following year. For 28, 29, again, I'm trying to bring in those mini splits in the hotter areas. That one is for the middle school 7th grade wing, which is our hottest wing. Following that, we have a stone-covered roof that needs to be on our radar for the 6th grade wing. That was put in 1992. Replace door alarm motion sensors here at middle school. Again, another polished concrete floor. We're going to start doing the hallway. I'm looking at doing the UA hallway. It says IA, but it's actually the UA hallway. I'm also now looking into getting possibly an insulated partition wall for the curtain behind you. I want to try to make that room more usable for the course. They do a fantastic job. They have done. That's all we've ever had is just that thin curtain. But it'd be nice to get an actual insulated wall so they can get in there and, possibly use this space during lunches or any other times where they're not interrupted. I'm looking at trying to get some paving back on our list, and with that being said, had spoken, I had a brief conversation a while back with the new DPW director, and I'm going to try to work, as most of you know, we now collectively do our oil bidding with the town, so we kind of help the town out with that because we use so much heating fuel. I'm going to try to use him for paving, so then we can get a discount on paving. So I'm going to try to work that in. It's going to take a little ingenuity because their budgets are a little different. He puts his bids out much earlier. Our budgets don't start till June. His start January 1st. But I'm sure we'll figure it out. And I'm looking at getting a polished concrete floor for the art room at Central School. And in the final year, our other truck will be due for an upgrade, as well as the plow and the spreader. I need to try to start sprinkling some door repairs and replacements. Instead of doing a lot of full replacements, I'm going to try diving a little deeper and doing some patches. And the doors are in pretty good condition. Steel doors have a pretty long lifespan, but the use and abuse of salting has eaten up the bottom. But there are ways around it to try to get these fixed at a more cost-effective way. The gym floor here is due for a complete, redo. A couple of spots need to be refloored, upgrade the logo, fix any gouges, any issues. We haven't had it in a while. I do a scratch and recoat it on it every year, which helps it out huge, but it's long overdue. Then again, some more paving here. The Central School cupola is on my radar as well. It is kind of a unique piece of the building. It's not too easily accessible, and there's not a lot of companies out there that do it, so I'm kind of, I did hear from our contractors, BPS, actually was our architect. There is some limited companies out there that actually can like prefab one, pop the other one off, throw the other one up there, and do it in, like a plastic so it can last forever almost. And finally, another mini split section at Central School to try to make, a more comfortable environment, and recarpeting the main office, conference room, and stage. And that's kind of where I lie. And as you can see at the bottom of every year, I try to be pretty consistent with the numbers. It was kind of difficult with the septics being in there as large as they were, but unfortunately it's kind of a big deal for any building, a house, a school, municipality. You need your septic. So, and these prices are based on current conditions, so they will fluctuate. Needs will fluctuate too. I can't read the future. I can't tell the future. I can assess a roof, I can assess doors, I can assess pavement, but we really don't know how long things will last. And I know there's a couple of big ticket items on there, such as the leach beds and the oil tank. Those, I'm more or less running off numbers here for years in and what's recommended on, replacements. So we're kind of at that time. So it's the best I have for you at this moment, and like I said, needs will change, and we may have to push something off, or a few things off, or might have to bump something up, and we can always flip-flop years. If we need to shift, we can. There's that flexibility. So that is pretty much my capital improvement maintenance plan. So if you have any questions, I'm here for you.
So for a ballpark on the ballpark, could you see like a $50,000 swing on the leach bed?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, it could go under or over, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, these are very, very, very rough numbers.
Okay.
I don't want to scare anyone, but you might be up to $500,000 to the elementary, but it might even be $320,000. Until we get it designed and to know what the need is for. Septics have come a long way since 1986, so what the regulations are, you just don't. I won't know until I have that design in front of me, and then I can get a really accurate number. So.
I like worst case scenario.
Absolutely. No, I'm totally with you on that, especially something of that nature. So, and I have seen signs at both schools. It's just, again, very difficult because I have had them tested, but you can only dig so deep without obviously getting below the pipes to see how the stone's doing down there. They can only assess so far. Just like when we had our underground storage tank at the elementary school. It was going on 35 years, which is quite a while. They pulled it out. The tank was not bad looking, but the top was showing some very significant wear that was exposed. You just won't know until it's out. So, and the hope is, not to dive too deep into that, but the oil tank that I'm going to be doing here, as much as I want to do it above ground because you get more longevity out of it, we just don't really have a unique space yet. We will be moving forward with a fiberglass tank that has a definite 30-year warranty on it. It will go underground. It will be a smaller one, a 6,000 gallon, not a 10,000 gallon. So I'm trying to find ways to bring that cost down as well, but it has jumped heavily. The last tank we did was about 175,000 two summers ago, so not even 2 full years ago. And it's already jumped, they quoted me the other day for 199 and change. So it's jumping heavily, about 15 grand every year, so.
Yeah, I still remember getting the text message where we may have to replace the central school leach field, and my heart dropped, so.
Right, yeah, and that's kind of what opened it up. We had an incident where it was in the middle and it kind of washed out, and the stone looked great. I brought in a resident expert in town, and he's like, your stone looks fantastic. So the leach pad kind of did what it needed to do. It drained down, and there are 3 of them, and one of them is showing signs, but it also might, we don't know the severity of it either. We do have 2 other beds that are most likely fine, working great, but you just don't know because it's under you. That's the tricky part when it comes to plumbing.
So a question on the air conditioning. So you said that the wall units can't keep up. So, but like $35,000, like what kind of unit would we be putting in?
So these are mini splits. I can usually get 2. So I just recently did the library and computer lab this past year. For anyone who's not familiar, the library here used to be 3 classrooms. So each classroom gets a head off of that mini split unit. And it was 35-ish for the installation, and it's also has a heat pump in it as well, which little side plus if we ever have heat issues, they can also use that as backup. Okay. They're more powerful. So the units that I have in there, the portable ones, it's an incredibly effective, cheap way to cool rooms. But some rooms, for example, like the art room at the central school, it's a much larger room. And for example, the UA here, those units wouldn't even do anything in them because they're that much larger. It has made rooms more comfortable. I mean, I could probably bring in a dozen staff members that came to me and said, thank you so much for putting this in here. It just makes it more comfortable, but it's still, they're struggling. These units are, I think, good for about 700 square feet. The rooms are about 9. Yeah. So they're just running nonstop. They're efficient, but not efficient. They're doing what we're asking it to, just not the best.
How many,
yeah.
How long would the $35,000 unit last? Like, what's the shelf, or the
That's a
lifetime?
good question. So they have come a long way. Just to give you an idea, we have some older mini splits, older technology that one of them in the math specialist room, which used to be a computer lab, I think it's going on like year 20. It's been in there for a long time, and now that was a very old unit. Newer ones, a little more efficient, run a little bit better, and easier to maintain. And to give you just kind of an idea, I know it's not classroom, I roughly had the gymnasium at the elementary school just roughly quoted. I didn't have a lot, I didn't have a design, but my HVAC guys they're very familiar with the system and what it would need. And just to do the gymnasium, his ballpark price was no less than $400,000 just to get air conditioned retrofitted, and that's a central air. So the piping's already there. They just have to get it retrofitted with an air conditioner too. So just the gym cap was gonna be about $400,000. So just imagine that long-term for classrooms. I can bang out, a wing for around 35 to 70, depending how many classes. You get 2 heads per unit. These are very large units. So you get 2, and I did 4, and that's the math we can go off of. So I did 4 rooms technically for about $35,000, $36,000.
Versus if you do like a
Absolutely. If I do and the other problem is if I do a chiller system, now we have to have the piping done. We have to have the ductwork in. You have to have, the roof may not be able to hold the unit. We may have to have structural engineering up there to reinforce the roof to just hold the unit up there. There's a lot of factors into it. And I know a lot of other schools have been doing this. One, it's not the most aesthetically pleasing because you just have these like little units on your roof. But again, if you lose one unit, you're only affecting a limited area too. Yeah. Chiller goes down, the whole school goes down for the most part. So there are some pros and cons there.
And then if you, like you were talking about, you have the air conditioning unit in a classroom that's running all the time, I'm assuming that means then it's going to eventually die fairly.
One would think, if we're running overtime on it, it may just I'm hoping not, because I don't want to buy any more.
How often do we use air conditioning? Like how many days a year?
So I would say strongly, probably the month of May, couple, 2-3 weeks of June. Classes have been using them here since the start of school, so you're looking at September, maybe a week or two in October, because we do usually get a kind of a heat wave.
Okay.
And then summer school as well. So we were fortunate for summer school when I got the rest of Central in. Every downstairs room has it, so they used every downstairs room.
So it would make the summer school opportunities more available.
Yep.
Okay.
And
That's
I
a good
mean,
point.
I did in the library. She didn't lose any books this year. She usually loses books to humidity.
Oh,
So
wow, okay.
short money, but you're saving books also. They're not wrinkling.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Yep.
Any other questions for Mr. Mackey? I'll just say, as we go into budget planning season, I know you probably have in the back of your mind what the need to haves are and what we can potentially push off. So, where all of these are big ticket items, I'm just interested to have those conversations, but I think this is all really helpful information for all of us to be mindful of.
Yeah, and like I said, a lot of that is just on here for your reference. It doesn't mean this next year is a bit rough because there are about 3 things that probably need to happen, 3 or 4 that definitely need to happen. But years later, if I have to put off carpeting a wing, I can put off carpeting a wing. It's not flooring is not usually a huge issue, and if it is, we can assess actual, like maybe it's only a section or an area. But I mean, when it comes to our, the PFAS tanks for the water system, that's a no-brainer. I can't take that out, the kid that's drinking water here. And we have had in the area, not us per se, but in the area, there have been some hot spots for, PFAS and oil tank. I know we know heat's important.
Right.
But again, there is some flexibility there, and that's why I have them in there. And I'm very cautious on when I make my budget. I've been very consistent through the years. I mean, even after my first year, I kind of came down a bit. And if I have to take off some more in-house projects or smaller projects, I take them off. I try to make it balanced. I try to keep things as consistent as possible. These numbers that you see, my budget is obviously more than that. So you won't really see the budget climb 400,000. It may only go 150 or 100. I'm very cautious when I go through my entire lines. I'm currently doing it now, going through custodial supplies and, maintenance supplies and all that. And, there's a little bit of stuff I can shave off. Unfortunately, my world here is the unseen, plumbing, electrical, HVAC. I kind of have some pockets that can't move, but there's a little bit that I can adjust if need be. So, yeah.
Great. Thanks, Jeff.
You got
Appreciate
it.
Thank you.
So, Andy, if I could just add, because we'll look for the board to take action to approve the capital improvement plan.
Thank you.
But as a matter of process, I think it's important, you're not approving these as expenditures. We have a budget process for that.
Right.
And through that budget process, there could be some adjustments that are made. The board could choose at a later date to revisit the capital improvement plan and reapprove it. Generally speaking, when the board approves a plan, the superintendent can make what we define as superficial changes, and then substantive changes would come back to the board. So it's important that if there's an item on here that you have questions about, that will play out during the budget process. There's also an item that is omitted from here that is going to warrant a much larger conversation, and that is, when we complete the 2 classroom addition, what does the future look like when it comes to the much-needed addition of the central school? That's not part of this capital improvement plan. It could be that the board sees that as a priority over the next 5 years, and it should be, but we can articulate that after this project's done, and then we discuss, pricing for future projects, that we could bring this back in the spring to add some component of it, of a future project to this, because a capital improvement plan would typically include a construction project, but there's so many unknowns about what a future project will look like, we intentionally omitted it from this document. So just to give the board a little bit of context.
Any questions for Bob on any of that? All right, at this point, I will make a motion to approve the 2023 through 2028 capital improvement and maintenance plan.
Second.
Any questions? All approved? All right. The HCS renovation update.
All right, so just a real quick update. Mr. Dowd isn't here tonight. He had a family obligation, but just to take you through a update, we did meet last Wednesday with the project managers and the construction company just to get an update. And Joe, if you want to go to the next slide. So again, this is just overview. You saw this last time. We'll say this again. We're adding 2 additional classrooms between the 40s and 60s wings, what we have sort of defined as the Cove classrooms. And we're also renovating 2 existing classroom spaces in the 1940s wing. This was approved by voters in March of 2024. The total project cost is $1,558,950, and that is not money that is raised through any new taxes. That is money that has been put away through the savings in the Capital Reserve Fund. We're still on track for mid-November completion. And if you want to go to the next slide. So we have what actually looks like an addition. So we have the brick mortar work has been done. Obviously, we're still waiting on the windows. If you go to the next slide. This is what the new classrooms look like. Well, this is actually, I think, the second floor. This is what the space looks like. So progress is being made. One of the other issues that we are contending with is when we opened up the ceiling in the 40s wing for the renovation, we recognized that the floor joists, they're from 1940s, so they need some additional support. So they've actually installed, and I don't have a picture of it, but they've what they call scissors, which are these metal beams that helps to support the floor. Because in reality, we don't want to have to open up that ceiling. Well, I say we, it would probably be 40 years from now. So, you notice that, it's, there's several years of wear on them. Let's support them now. So that work is also being completed. So we're on track. Progress is being made. I think Dr. Cheney mentioned it, but it's worth repeating. The work is disruptive. And you think about the phrase active construction zone and the phrase educating children. Those 2 words don't go together well. So I do want to thank our teachers, and I want to thank Dr. Cheney, who has been very proactive in communication with the construction company. They text her and say, look, at 10:30 this morning, it's going to be noisy. I wish the work could be done outside of the workday, but these subcontractors work, like most people, from 8 to 4. And we try to minimize the noise. It's not easy. Today was probably a very rough day. And, they were doing work on the ceiling in the 40s wing, I believe. And it was noisy. And we had to move several classrooms that we wouldn't normally move. There's certain classrooms we know are impacted, and Dr. Cheney communicates with them. But the work today was pretty disruptive. We had to move several classrooms. And the other thing that happened today was they were doing some paving, and the odor from paving it's just not a pleasant odor. It's not toxic, but it resulted in us having to relocate a classroom. So I appreciate the patience of the teachers. They've been phenomenal, and even the students as well. We'll be done soon. And then, we'll have these 2 beautiful classrooms and the 2 renovated classrooms. As you've heard me say before, this does not solve our space issues. In fact, we made the decision to add a kindergarten section, which right away eliminated like the benefit of one additional classroom. And it's important to note too, and I'll talk a little bit about this in budget, even adding an additional section of kindergarten, we still had a waiting list, right? So we ran, 4 full-day sections and 2 half-day sections. We still had a waiting list. So I say that as we begin to talk about budget and we begin to talk about future needs, because when this project's done, the board I know is anxious to engage in a conversation of what's next. So that's where we're at. And I entertain any questions the board might have in regards to the HCS renovation project.
Any questions? I'm encouraged to see that they look like somewhat classrooms without windows. It's a great progress step there. All right. Moving on here to the budget discussion for 2025-2026.
Yeah, so our budget process is well underway. We're at the phase right now where principals and directors are working with their individuals to get numbers and to build the budget. Again, we build it from the ground up. And our next meeting will give you a very high level sort of view of what we're looking at in terms of some of the variables and some of the expenses that we're looking at. I think it's important to recognize that the challenge with the school budget, well, the challenge in general is balancing the needs of our school and moving our school forward, continuous growth. Next year, we want to be a little bit better than we were this year. We also have to balance that with our fiscal responsibility. I have lots of conversations, I would say almost daily, with individuals who are on a fixed income or who are struggling to make ends meet. So our job when constructing a budget is we have to keep all of the citizens of this town in mind. And the struggle that we have with that are our fixed costs, and we've talked about this before. Last year, our insurance, which we have to pay, it went up by $1 million. That was just the increase. Was a $1 million increase. We have contractual obligations with our teachers that are approved by the voters. We have to honor those. We have commitments in special education and educating children with disabilities. Those are our commitments. Those are fixed costs. And it's the fixed costs that really drive the budget. The pieces that we actually can control and have a lot of discretion over represent a very small amount of the overall operating budget. And so I say that because I just wanted to get some feedback from the board as we continue to build the budget, because we're going to be coming back here just to get some input. I can tell you, just to run through a couple of categories that we're spending a tremendous amount of time on, staffing. So you will see in the proposed operating budget a special education coordinator position for the central school. You will recall this is a position that has been added to our staff through grant funding. So it's not part of our regular operating budget. The way grants work, federal grants work, is what they call supplement, not supplant. So you can add a position in there, can't keep it in there. So what we'd be looking to do is bring that from the grant into the operating budget for next year. As of right now, that is the one staff position I can tell you that we're absolutely adding. I can tell you what we're also doing is I'm working with Melissa McDonald, our Director of Student Services, to look at our support staff needs. The number of special education paraeducators really needs to match the number of hours that are in a child's IEP. And so we need to make sure that we have that data. To be honest with you, it's something that we've struggled to get in the past because our needs are changing all the time. We also have support staff members in regular education as part of RTI. They support the library. So we could be coming forward with a staffing request for support staff. And then also the other piece too that we're still working through is contracted services. And we've had some conversation about this. There is such a shortage of related service providers for school psychologists, OT, speech. So what we're in the process of doing, Mrs. McDonald, Jeff and I are looking at what are our budgeted contracted services, and is it possible to be able to take some of those services and have them translate over to a position that would be a district employee position. There likely will be a request included in the operating budget for, without committing, I would say school psych. We are contracting for a significant number of school psychology services that it may benefit us to at least attempt to make that a position within our budget. Transportation is the other one. We've seen a significant increase in specialized transportation costs. This is the result of just increasing costs of transportation in general. It's also increasing cost for out-of-district students and even in district. So specialized transportation, we're talking about special education transportation. And that is driven by the number of students who require that service as part of their IEP. What also drives that is where they live, because we cannot, nor should we, put a child in preschool on a bus for more than an hour. And if we have a number of students on a bus, if the amount of time on the bus exceeds an hour, we need to have a second bus, which is a significant cost. And those are costs we don't always know about. We don't always know who's going to be in our preschool program, who's going to be referred to special ed. So that you'll see a significant increase in transportation. Mr. Dowd and I have looked at the feasibility of purchasing our own bus, hiring our own driver. I don't think you're likely to see that in the budget. I've gone through the bus regulations, and I can send them to the board. It's CAFC 1300, the transportation regulations of New Hampshire. They are voluminous, and I would be concerned about our ability to be in compliance with school bus regulations if we purchased our own bus. And then I talked a little bit about staffing. Kindergarten, we need universal kindergarten. When we talk about interventions and being able to support students in some ways to keep them out of special education, universal kindergarten is the way to go. I would love to add a kindergarten position. We don't have the space for it. And if the board wants to make that a priority, we certainly can, but please know that our space limitations have consequences. Adding kindergarten comes at the expense of something else. So that's where we are at. I don't have firm numbers for you tonight. I also don't have my numbers guy here. But I'm interested to hear from the board any input that you have, because we're going to yeah, that's all right, you're not the number, you're the curriculum person, so, yeah. Yeah, I know, in a moment like this, yeah. So I welcome input. We are going to hand you a budget we're going to recommend. You're going to make whatever adjustments you feel necessary, and you're going to adopt it as your school, as the Hampstead School Board budget. And so I'm here to ask if there's just additional considerations, things you'd like us to look at before we begin the process of finalizing that.
So personally, and this is just kind of speaking to the rest of the board, we all sign those AP invoices at the end of every pay period for the expenses going out the door. And if you look closely at those, they show the number of consulting fees and the out-of-district placements that we have to pay, and those have become those things that are non-negotiables. We're unable to have any say in, because we don't have the staffing and we don't have the space to meet the needs for those students. So I think as we go into this budget season, just something to be mindful of is that, like, how much are we contracting out for these services that could be in district, and could ultimately save us a lot of money in the long run while with building that expense into our budget.
Yeah, I agree with that. I look at those are some of the biggest numbers in there, so I notice that every time.
Busing kids to
Yeah,
Bedford,
absolutely,
busing
yeah.
kids to Hampton.
Yep, I notice that every time.
Every time.
As Bob said, ultimately, eventually everything's gonna come down to the space question, right?
Mhm.
And you just drive by the central school and it's like, this part of the building looks this way because then they added this piece on, and then they added this piece on, and then they added this piece on, and I think, a great thing happened by adding these 2 classrooms and, rehabbing 2 others, but ultimately, it's not enough.
It's not enough.
So, that's the bigger conversation that we probably need to start having now.
For busing, do other local districts that operate their own buses, like does Derry or?
No, Derry actually uses First Student. Manchester just moved towards their own busing, but I mean, they have economy of scale. We've had some conversations at the superintendent level about trying to do a better job of coordinating. The problem is there are districts that are in much dire situation than we are. So there's a little bit of a hesitation, to coordinate all of these resources when they're so scarce to begin with. And the issue, and I won't go into too much detail, is the regulations for busing every year increase. And the big issue is we can't just purchase a van and go pick up. You cannot pick a child up at their home or drop them off at their home unless you have what qualifies as a bus, and you have somebody who is a certified bus driver. And even if the district were to have that, if that employee were to call in or go out on leave, we're going to find ourselves in a very precarious situation.
So effectively, you would need 2 bus drivers to guaranteed 1.
Would. And then also, I would say you would need somebody who really, truly understands all of the bus regulations with safety, inspections, training. So you would almost be looking at maybe not an additional position, but likely that would have to result.
So like Manchester and Nashua, they have transportation people. Could you try to connect with the superintendents on the feasibility of, say, like Derry, Londonderry, Salem, Hampstead, like to have a shared person that does that all and then possibly?
Yeah, so we already do. We have, and it varies from year to year, and I don't have that data in front of me. I certainly can. We do ride sharing. The directors of student services talk with one another and say, the special education school in North Andover, for example, anyone who has students in their town, let's ride share and we'll share the cost. So that does already happen. But the routine in district, it's difficult because a lot of schools have the same start time. So to be able to share that, it might work for some out of district, and we do it when we can.
But I was thinking more if you had a transportation director that multiple districts used.
Yeah.
And then knew the regulations, and then you could have multiple buses in multiple districts.
And in some ways, we have that with First Student now. Now, granted, it's a contracted service, but we, again, going back to that concept of economy of scale, we do share with the Timberlane School District, the bus barn, the buses, and even the drivers, which does allow, if we have a driver out, in theory, that we can kind of pool and get someone to come here to Hampstead. But,
And I believe we used to have that, and that position was removed.
Well, what I'm kind of saying more is like if we do multiple districts, and especially with First Student not really handling that situation well, at least if we start the conversation and the process.
Yeah.
If need be, if it's really bad, then we can try to go down that road, but yeah.
It's really bad. I'm not, and please, the people that we have who drive for us are amazing people. There's a labor shortage, and there's just the complexity of, what they need to provide for a service.
Well, if we were employed ourselves, we would be outside the contractor for a student, and we would be able to pay more and possibly retain people year after year.
So, yeah, and we're talking about our specialized transportation is through Durham Bus Services.
Okay.
First student does have specialized transportation, and we did put it out to bid, and we found Durham to be a more competitive bid. But again, that contract will end. We're under a multi-year agreement, and we certainly can look for other companies, but regardless of the company, what I hear from other superintendents is they're all reporting the same issues. And quite frankly, the issues that I'm hearing from other superintendents are far worse. Not that that makes us feel better, but.
And then, does anybody have transportation questions?
Do you have a question?
Transportation
Question or
questions?
No, I was unclear. I thought that, I didn't realize you were talking about the special education busing.
Yeah,
It sounded like you were saying we should have a transportation coordinator with other districts so that we could then run our own buses.
I was thinking transportation. Yeah, I don't want to start a bus. full
No,
bus
and
company.
that would not be.
You don't want any of that.
No,
No.
not at all. And then the question on, do we currently have enough paraprofessionals for the amount of hours that we need, or are we contracting? for
We are, I just approved a contracted special education paraeducator at the middle school. They haven't started yet. With that position, all the positions at the middle school are full. And then at central school, we have, not to put you on the spot. Sorry if I
I just wanted
did.
to verify, we have 2 contracted at Hampstead Central School and 1 unfilled position still.
Okay.
And
But
again,
we are
particularly-
interviewing multiple times a week.
Yeah.
And with paraeducators, again, that contracted service compared to what the cost would be with our own employees, it's pretty significant.
So say if we have a para more than we need, or a para more than we expect for next year, assuming we can fill them all, and then we don't have a special ed need, we could use them in general education classrooms or support within the building?
We could, but I want to be careful saying this. I anticipate that Melissa's analysis of paraeducator need is not necessarily going to yield that we have more support than we need. I really don't. But to your point, Carl, it would not be our intention to be like, oh, we have 3 additional paraeducators, because we're talking specifically about special education. Those positions could potentially be utilized in regular education to support MTSS.
Well, basically my thought process was, if we have one para more than we think we might need, and then we get someone, we would have that person to put in that role. But if we did not get someone, they could sub or doing other stuff.
It could be a floater. We also have paraeducators that need to do Medicaid logs, which is something that we've struggled to do. Even, I hear from from our paraeducators, it's a struggle even to get your 30-minute lunch in. So somebody to provide that relief valve to help make sure that people have a reasonable work schedule.
So for me, for the budget for next year, that would be something I would like to lean towards, to have a little bit of a buffer. And if we can't fill it, then we're not paying for it. But if we could fill it and we manage to find people, I think that would be super helpful. But that's my thought process.
Yeah.
I know paraeducators are hard to fill, and there's lots of districts that are using contracts, companies to fill those positions. I don't know, as part of the budget, the problem is, I don't know, are you having a hard time with people actually applying for the position?
Yeah.
Is there a way to incentivize the position?
So
Short term?
unfortunately, we are bound by the collective bargaining agreement. I do think that we recognized in the last negotiations that we needed to be more competitive with our, hourly rate, which I think we are, and I think we still are. But there's just a shortage of people, and what's happening is qualified candidates are now going to work for these agencies that are now contracting with us. Those people would, just so that they can make more money. And they typically, you make a larger hourly wage, but you don't get the benefits. So yeah, that's really the issue.
And back to the busing, is the DOE aware of the issues, and do they have any kind of plan or?
Yeah, I have had
Anything?
multiple conversations in the last couple of months with our Commissioner of Education on acting as a representative of the superintendents, largely around what was the possible strike at First Student. They've resolved that. There's a new contract at First Student, and we're super excited that our drivers aren't going anywhere. So, you know, again, recognizes that it is a continued struggle and issue, but there hasn't been any change or movement in any of the regulations. And again, we do exceed our obligation for busing. So, for example, the statute requires that we transport students from first grade to eighth grade. If we wanted to, and I don't suggest we do this, we could tell our high school students they need to find a ride to school. We could also tell our kindergarten parents they have to drive their kids to school. We also can have people travel up to 2 miles to go to a bus stop. That is absolutely absurd, I think, for any age. So again, part of it is there is some room within the regulations for us to make adjustments. It's just not prudent on our part.
Okay. All right. Any other questions or comments for Bob regarding budget? Okay. Thank you. Okay. All right. Moving on to the 2024-2025 draft school board goals. So we all kind of went through and shared our feedback of these goals, and some goals were combined and we revised some of them. So at this point we have to kind of pare all of this down and make a decision on what we want to move forward with. So for goal number 1, we changed digital literacy to be just literacy. We all kind of, as a consensus, wanted to see literacy specifically, you know, early interventions and language around the science of reading incorporated into this. So there are 2 options here that we can move forward with. Personally, I'll just share my feelings. The second option looks better to me, just in terms of its clear wording, and it kind of incorporates all of the different things that I think we all wanted to see. But I'll entertain any other comments or. Okay. So, Bob and Melissa, I don't know how we want to approach this, but do we want all of these kind of read out to kind of publicize it? So for this literacy goal, just as a board, we look to promote grade level reading proficiency through the integration of digital literacy, collaborative efforts among educators, and the implementation of a curriculum based on the science of reading while providing early interventions and support for struggling readers, ensuring all students have the skills needed for academic success. Moving on to appreciation of diversity and inclusivity. And actually prior to that, we did have in our 2023-2024 goals one around facility improvements. We kind of did away with that because it was kind of implied in our strategic plan that we would focus on those things anyway. But for the appreciation of diversity and inclusivity, the goal is to foster a culture of acceptance, diversity, equality, and inclusivity by offering professional development that encourages diverse perspectives. This initiative will also include comprehensive anti-bullying programs to create respectful, safe, and welcoming learning environments, helping students become responsible and compassionate citizens. I think this really speaks to all of the work that's currently being done around MTSSB and bullying across the district, so I think it's good language around that. Another goal that we wanted to see put forth was really fiscal responsibility and the kind of process we go through when we plan these budgets. So we rolled the facility improvements into this one to develop an executable 2025-2026 budget that supports student academic and social emotional needs in a fiscally responsible manner while pursuing state, federal, and local funding to enhance learning environments and ensure facility improvements meet current safety standards based on thorough evaluations and audits. For innovative practices, we incorporated the outdoor community-based learning goal that was in the 2023-2024 goals. So this new goal is to support the district-wide implementation of innovative evidence-based practices, including universal design for learning and experiential outdoor community-based learning that promote all students' intellectual, social, emotional, and physical well-being while fostering resilience, community, and connection. This is a new goal, supporting the safety and well-being of both staff and students. We all felt pretty passionate about this one. So the goal is to foster a safe, supportive, and inclusive environment for staff and students by enhancing the multi-tiered systems of support to address diverse social, emotional, and academic needs. This includes developing trauma-informed school-wide systems, such as positive behavior programs and targeted interventions for behaviors like substance misuse, bullying, truancy, and repeated offenses. The district will also work on boosting staff morale by offering support, recognition, and training while helping students stay engaged in their learning by removing obstacles and providing consistent academic and behavioral support. Moving on to promoting student success. This is a new goal. Implement strategies to engage students in their learning and interventions to eliminate barriers to student success. Develop and utilize a trauma-informed school-wide system of support, including a positive behavior system, as well as prevention and intervention programs for specific behaviors that impede student success, such as substance misuse, vaping, bullying, truancy, expressions of extreme anger, and repeated suspendable offenses. The district will develop a continuum of academic, behavioral, and other intervention strategies through the multi-tiered system of support with clear procedures, records, and data collection. The district is committed to providing professional development to all stakeholders to ensure consistency and understanding and response of the MTSS systems. I appreciate everyone bearing with me as I read through all those, but I also appreciate the board and all of your comments and the things you wanted to see incorporated. I think this is really a representative document of the things that we value. Any questions or comments from anybody?
Yes. So now that I'm seeing it on this page, it appears to me that the last two goals are exactly the same. So could we perhaps just adopt one of those?
I would agree with that after reading through it.
Yeah, I feel like there's overlap, and I
Yep.
feel like promote student success is a more in-depth version of the support safety and well-being.
Yep.
The promote student success is like a more in-depth version of the support, the safety and well-being. Yeah,
No, I
yeah.
agree. I think it's worded together
Yeah.
a little bit better.
Yeah, so I feel like if the direction to the superintendent is to kind of do the promote student success without having it in the school board goals, I think that would be achieved.
Yeah, I guess my question is there is that no, or
Yes, it's,
like an overarching goal and
yeah, it's too detailed.
we want to say
Sorry, I read
Yeah,
a
no,
lot of
no,
goals
please.
from all
I
different
think it's,
states and New Hampshire.
I think it is actually wonderful that we have educators on this board, well, and, you know, just the board in general, who has some experience with writing goals, deliverables, creating expectations. But my feedback to the board would be that promotes student success. Like, your job is to come up with a what, like what it is that you would expect to have happen. And this team right here, our job is the how that's going to happen. And more specifically, that's what's going to happen at the next board meeting when we present the deliverables. Our deliverables are taking what's in the strategic plan, taking your goals, and making stuff happen. So I would suggest that all the things listed under promote student success absolutely have to happen, but let that be the job of the superintendent to articulate through the strategic plan how we're going to do that.
I would potentially suggest, since the one
staff and students.
Yeah, I like that.
We have things about training the staff at the end of that as well.
Yeah.
So I feel like
Yep.
the title makes sense.
Yep.
So support the safety, comma, well-being of, and
And success of
success of staff and students. Yeah.
But we want to avoid saying that the schools have to implement PBIS programs, because that's us down telling the schools what programs to implement.
You mean MTSS?
Well, it just
No,
says
it actually
positive
says-
behavior
It says
program,
this
doesn't it?
includes developing trauma-informed school-wide systems such as positive behavior. So to me, that reads like, I want Dr. Cheney. to
Yeah, it's,
implement
I would
this.
say the "this includes" part, let that be on us, right?
Can we say something about proactive strategies? Proactive strategies, yeah.
Yeah, because you're right, there will be staff who will be like, oh, here we go, we got to do PBIS when,
Yeah, I definitely think it needs to be kind of like, we're supposed to say, this is what we want to see, but you guys have to.
articulate how to get it done.
Yeah.
So,
However that needs to be.
Instead of positive behavior programs, say something about proactive strategies.
proactive strategies and targeted interventions.
That promote student success.
So I guess the reason I liked the other things listed out is looking at the report. I feel like we need to address certain things, and we need to say that they're important to address.
And I 100% agree. So I think like we have these broad goals, right? This is my opinion. We have these
Yeah.
broad goals. We have this report. So when we do the strategic plan and we work with Bob and his team, that's part of their plan.
Those are the nitty-gritty details.
Those are the nitty-gritties.
Do we want to say this is important to us?
So,
Bullying?
It's important to us to have them be proactive. How they go about that is up to them.
I don't think we're saying what we want them to do to target it, but we're saying that those things are important and we'd like them addressed. That's how I'm taking it. Like, we're not saying put DARE in the schools and,
Right,
you know, we're
right.
not saying what they have to do, we're just saying these are important things.
I don't think that's being too restrictive.
yeah.
I mean, we could,
I think
I
we're,
mean, that's a legal
yeah.
thing.
I feel like we may not be there yet to vote. Feel like we may not be there yet to vote on it today.
Yeah, I would agree. Just on that
Yeah.
last one, so I think if we can bring this back to for the next meeting, we'll revise that last
No,
one.
please don't apologize.
Also, not to be that guy, but
your civics isn't in
my
there.
citizenship thing went away. Or my,
No.
where is it?
It didn't make it to this copy.
I apologize, it was hard trying to follow that, the Google
Oh, wait,
Doc with all the
the word
notes.
citizens is in here,
Yeah.
compassionate citizens.
Passionate citizens.
But for me, it's the ability for them to analyze information is something we have to teach them. It's like you send your kid to karate and he learns how to do karate, but you never teach him not to punch a kid in the face.
It's in there, kind of, probably just not the same wording, so under appreciation of diversity in communities, it does mention as, and in welcoming learning environment, public students become responsible and compassionate citizens.
So for me,
Doesn't spell it out enough.
that goal does not have to do with what I'm looking at. I want the students to be challenged when they're here, to be able to understand information, push back against teachers, other students, I think getting them to read and write is absolutely important, but getting them to think about how they use that information is equally as important, because I feel like our kids are underprepared for when they go out in the real world on their ability to analyze things. And I think that's something that, before they get paired in, I think that's something they need to look at. However, I need to put that wording together and we can work on it the next meeting.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know yet.
And
I certainly tried to add something about.
Yeah, No, I appreciate it, yeah. Yeah, it's okay.
And just in terms of our schedule, and I'm not trying to rush you, like our administrators are working on finalizing those deliverables for the strategic plan. So what we'd be talking about is the next meeting, we'd be coming to you with goals and the strategic plan. So, I mean, I have the spirit, I think, of what you want to do, but, you know, we're going to present to you a strategic plan when we don't have your finalized goals. So the board, we can, if I were to tell them we're going to defer until later to the second meeting in October, I think people would be, you know, happy to do that, but just keep in mind that the goals do kind of direct that strategic plan, so.
Yeah, I mean, we,
And it's been a little bit of a struggle because, you know, we have a new team and we're, you know, still trying to sort through it. And the other piece is we're looking for, you know, we've done like a crosswalk of the MTSS report, how we can, you know, put some of those items in place right away, and then how we can embed some of them in the strategic plan. So if the board wants that additional time, I can go back and make some of the changes based upon the feedback, bring it back for the 8th, and then we'll push out the strategic plan to the second week of October. It could make for a little bit of a long meeting in terms of we'll be talking about budget and we'll be doing the strategic plan, but in some ways they do go hand in hand.
Right.
Because the budget is our articulation of our vision for the district, so.
So like if we did this literacy goal, the promote grade level proficiency, right? Check. The diversity inclusivity, yes, right? Yes, yes, yes. We took off the last goal and just changed the name of support, safety, well-being, success. And then what do we need to do? Add civics in?
So, yeah, and we also need to do we could remove the positive behavior programs and do proactive
Yeah.
targeted interventions.
And then is there anything else that people would want changed?
yeah, I mean,
So then we'd have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 goals.
My opinion is words with goal 5, less prescriptive and more.
I guess my only thing with I hear what you're saying about the prescriptive part, but I kind of like, I don't feel like, well, I guess it's prescriptive because we're saying certain things that they should target, but I guess we can take out repeated offensive, but I think the substance misuse, bullying, and truancy are important.
Yeah.
Other things you would find.
yep. Speak your mind.
I just, to me, when I think of multi-tiered systems of support, like, I think about addressing all of the things that you're talking about.
In one.
Like, I know, like, obviously, like, Hampstead, we had the bullying, and it was all over social media, and everybody's, you know, on high alert about it, but when we think about multi-tiered systems of support, supporting kids, these are all things that we do anyway. I don't see why the board can't just say, we expect an implementation of multi-tiered systems of support, and then as part of the strategic plan, Bob and the team come up with those particular actions.
You can totally be on the. Yeah, so we just remove that middle sentence?
So I'm trying to, yeah.
I think we can just remove that sentence. I think we can just remove that sentence.
I will not die on this hill, but I want it in this meeting. But those are important, and I feel like they need to be.
And you can be on the strategic planning.
And I think, like, right now, we are stating pretty intently that, like, these are the things that we want to see addressed. So Bob has that information and can take it with him
Yeah.
as he works with the group to create the strategic plan.
Yeah.
And the goal is broad enough to apply to all of those things, but it doesn't state specifically
What to
every
work
single
on.
item that needs to be targeted.
He will both be following the letter of the school goals, but then also the spirit of it from the discussions we've had.
Right.
At the end of the day, there's that check of, no, sorry, Bob, that's the evaluation at the end of the year, right? That's the.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, I would say after, to address diverse social, emotional, and academic needs, there's the period, and that's where it cuts off. It's as broad and as concise as it needs to be to address the things that we want to see.
And then just add that word, assessment,
Exactly.
Okay.
Can we flip staff and student? I know it's a simple thing, I think staff.
I don't have any issue with that, but student first.
I know you said something about families. Did you want families in there or no? No. Okay.
So it would be support the safety, success, and well-being of students and staff?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Removing the middle sentence. And then we're getting rid of promote student success goal?
Yes.
Okay.
And then you're flipping students and staff. Did you say that?
Yeah.
Yep.
Melissa, are you getting all this?
I have it written down, I
Okay,
can't help her.
because it sounds like we could have a motion to accept the goals.
I have actually captured it all. I have a lot of notes here. I probably should have brought a pencil instead of a pen.
I have the really
But
simple
I think I've
version
got
that
it
I can
though.
help with the effort. Do you guys want to go down the rabbit hole of my, like, information literacy?
What do you mean?
So, well, I,
Oh, having the word information
well,
literacy?
no, I would, so I can't remember
Or digital
what we
literacy?
did yeah, well, something like being able to analyze, so the original wording I had was being able to analyze sources of information and their bias, but I can't remember for sure.
Would that
We can put that on the end of the literacy goal.
hit your civics thing?
Yeah, that's my, like, for me, it's, like, reading and understanding information, and then being able to look for, for,
So ensuring all
With bias
students
and
have the skills to, what did you just say?
That just seems really specific, though. And if you're talking about kindergartners and first graders, are you going to train them to analyze?
That kind of falls under the same question as that student.
I understand the value and the spirit
So-
of what you're saying, and I agree with you.
so for me, like, outdoor classrooms was somewhat specific, but, like, it was a thing that I, like, think is very valuable and needed, and for me, like, I don't, like, I think that is, and I know I'm teaching for somebody who's a social studies nerd, but, like, they may not get it when they get out of 8th grade.
But is that something that we can address through the strategic plan, saying,
Well, right now, there's really not anything in there that says that we should do it in the strategic plan.
Well, and I also want to be clear too, like, there are some priorities that don't get put in that plan. Like, clearly, we started the school year with a major priority of focusing on school culture and bullying. Like we don't wait to put things in the plan, because if I were to try to articulate all the things said here, the plan would be a lot more substantive, right? So the question is, it really would come down to, the board saying, like, we want you to provide evidence that this is an area that's being worked on. What does that look like? Because what I'm hearing you say, and I mentioned this to Nicole, that sounds like a topic that I would hear if I attended the social studies department meeting, where they would have, those are the type of conversations that are going on at BLCs.
I think that logic is incredibly scary to me. I think that is something that has to be prevalent in everything, like science.
Yeah, yes. Yeah,
Yeah, like for me, like science and like doubting and inquiry and information sources is incredibly important. I think in English it's important, and I think like ingraining it, I think that it's fundamentally that is a threat to democracy in our country and to the line of thinking. That being said, as long as you understand the importance, like I'm okay with leaving that out of the school board's goals for now.
Ultimately, those skills are part of the standards anyway, right?
No, absolutely
Well,
not.
so
The K-12 social studies standards do not go down there.
What is it in the, is it in the Common Core? Evaluating sources?
Not,
do you have a
Not in that way, no.
suggestion for a
I-
short
I-
line of wording to add
I'm
that?
okay with moving on for the goals for this year, leaving the intent with Bob to look at it, and then we can revisit it next year.
Okay. So at this point where we do have plans of what we want to do with the wording, I think I'm going to make a motion to adopt the 2024-2025 school board goals.
I would second that.
Before the board votes on that, can I just run down the line just to make sure
Absolutely.
that I have
You mean you didn't
everything?
catch all
So-
that?
No, let's see. Let's see what grade I
You
get.
probably did. I think you'll do well.
Right.
All right, so for literacy, we're going to go with the second section.
Correct.
After the
Yep.
word or. Okay. The second one, appreciation of diversity and inclusivity, we're going with that one.
Yep.
As well as the third one, effective use of financial resources.
Yep.
Innovative practices as is.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, number 5. So this title will change to support the safety, comma, success, comma, and well-being of students and staff.
Yes.
Correct.
Okay. And then it's going to read out, starting with the first sentence, which ends with "and academic needs."
Yep.
The second sentence is gone entirely.
Yeah.
Yes.
Moving us down to the last sentence, which starts with "the district will also work on boosting staff."
Yes.
Okay. And then the last one, the board is not moving forward with that goal.
Can we,
Correct.
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 sorry, can we change the word to the district will prioritize?
Where?
The district will prioritize
Boosting.
boosting staff morale, just.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's
it
fine.
says work
Yeah,
on.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
Okay.
Well put.
Prioritize.
If the board's okay with that, I'll make
Yeah,
that
that's fine.
Yes.
change.
Very okay with that.
So it would read, the district will prioritize,
Boosting staff morale by offering support.
Or increasing, whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, do we want to, why don't we just say?
I like increasing.
Yeah, we will
Increase staff
prioritize
morale.
increasing staff morale.
Yep.
And then the rest
Yeah.
is the same.
That's fine.
All right.
Can you repeat that? I didn't
Yep.
get that.
Okay, so it'll say the district will
Prioritize.
prioritize increasing staff morale by offering support, recognition, and training, and the rest is the same.
Yep, thank you.
And then eliminate the final.
Yep. And then
Correct.
Yep. All right, thank you for that, and I appreciate it.
Okay.
All right, so we have a motion on the table. Mr. Cabarrus,
I seconded
and you
that.
seconded. Okay, thank you.
All right, moving on to the policies.
Did the board
Oh,
vote?
You gotta- you gotta vote.
No, we didn't vote.
Sorry. Any questions?
Let's not stop now.
Yeah, right.
All approved.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry about
thank
that.
you. Thank you.
All right. Board members, in your packets, you have 7 policies for first review. First one is policy IC, the school year, school calendar.
Yeah, this policy was the one that was talking about what's acceptable use of remote learning days. And that they would only be effective or count to the, correct me if I'm wrong. I don't have my notes with me on this. That they would only be accepted as a school day if it was during like a weather event.
That is correct.
So that's what that one's about.
And then policy FEH, supervision of construction.
I can try to summarize this one too. So this one was talking about just the need to have a project manager for projects that are $1 million or more, that are state funded, or that are funded in part through the state Building State Aid Grant, but we are already doing that. So we were just adjusting the language.
And then policy JLCA, the physical examination of students.
I don't have my notes on this one to accurately
Yeah, so this
describe,
states,
but this one was
revisions-
a little weird based on the title. It's not what it sounds like.
Yep. Revisions to JCLA included clarification of the district's discretion to require additional examinations, addition of provisions relative to homeless students, and conditional enrollment, as well as other minor language changes.
And the way I read it is it makes it easier for students to become enrolled and then to work out afterwards any issues that may come up.
And this specifically states, policy around physicals being required in order to be an eligible student or an eligible
Unless there's a religious exemption.
Yep. Policy JLCCA, HIV and AIDS. It's suggested to repeal and replace with the new EBCG, which applies more broadly to communicable diseases.
The next one's basically the same, doing the same.
Yep. Thanks, Aaron. So GBGAA, that's a suggested repeal and replace with EBCG. And then number 6, EBCG, communicable and infectious diseases, suggested policy for the books as a replacement for former policies. So that's just basically putting that new policy in place after repealing the other ones. And then JFAB is the admission of non-resident students.
Was that last one, or was it a different one that that was still gonna have some discussion, or were we?
Yeah, so if you look at, so policy JFAB is our non-resident tuition. And that allows people from other communities to enroll their children here. They have to pay tuition. This largely is a policy that impacts our staff who would like to enroll their children in the district, but they don't live here. So the change that we're looking to make, basically, there's a flat rate for tuition of $15,000, so the district will pay $15,000 of, or reduce the tuition cost of $15,000, not actual direct cost. And then the person would be responsible, staff or faculty member would be responsible for the delta. This policy is supposed to be reviewed over 3 years. The last time it was reviewed was in 2017. So when we take into account inflation, we had sort of roughly determined that $15,000, if we calculate as a percentage, knowing every year tuition is going to go up, is around 80%. So that's why I would recommend that we move the 15,000 to 80% so that it keeps pace with inflation. And that number is the starting point for a conversation. The board obviously has the discretion to adjust that number up or down. And then we also added, we had in there half-day kindergarten, and then we also added in pre-kindergarten, preschool as well.
Board members, any questions on that 80% figure? Okay. Right, so at this point, I will make a motion to move those policies on to second reading.
Second.
Any questions? All approved?
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to board comments and correspondence. Anyone have anything to share? Any questions, comments?
I do not.
Okay. The consent agenda, 2024-2025 personnel report.
All right, we have one item under the personnel report, and that is we have a retirement of Michael Basilian, who is HMS special education teacher, and that would be effective at the conclusion of the 24-25 school year.
All right.
I will say the fact that he's giving us plenty of notice is very, very, very highly appreciated, and I don't know him, but I'm sure his service has been really good, but that does us a huge favor, so if you can thank him for us.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And
Michael's
moving on
awesome.
to the superintendent's report.
Great. I'm going to turn it over to Mrs. Tomaselli, who's going to update on a number of items quickly.
Just back up 1 second. I don't think I heard a vote for the
No, we didn't.
personnel report. Sorry about that, Mrs. Tomaselli.
That's
All right.
fine.
Gives her more prep time.
Be patient.
I'll move to accept it.
I will second that.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
So I have 3 things I wanted to talk about. The first was earlier today, myself, Mr. Thompson, Dr. Cheney attended the unconference, which is the second annual unconference put on by the Superintendent's Association. We were very proud to have 2 teachers present this year. Marla Prue from 2nd grade and Jennifer Remillard from 1st grade presented our Grammys program at the Central School. And although this program has been around for years in Hampstead, and the number of total hours clocked that have been donated, I will say, to the school and have been increasingly more relevant given all of the push for increased SEL needs, small targeted groups and intervention, and just children forming connections. So they showed, and I believe you've seen it at a previous board meeting, the commercial that was filmed by the AmeriCorps Foundation and the Friends program specifically at our school. They use it widely. That was shown to the whole state that attended the unconference today. And so we're just so proud of our Grammys, Deb and Ellen and Claudia, and their years of service and all the strong connections they've made with kids. So it was a great day. Earlier this week, we've been, as you know, I've been redesigning our mentor program. I need you to know that the impetus to redesign the mentor program is not unique to Hampstead. Many districts around the state are finding that their mentor programs that traditionally have a one-to-one mentor for new hires in years 1, 2, and 3. These systems are just not working for the changing needs of our industry. So I've mentioned to you before that we have several teachers on site-based licenses. That first, second, third year mentor program doesn't allow us to compensate the people that are helping share their certification practice and knowledge with those on site-based licenses. So we've redrafted the mentor program to have 3 new buckets, brand new teachers, those on site-based licenses or related service licenses, and those experienced teachers that might just benefit from a building team. All buckets are now going to participate in instructional rounds, which will be scheduled quarterly at each building, and they will be visiting our expert master teachers to see what we really hold as a value. Those values are outlined in our strategic plan, but also have carried into our evaluation model. So they will be specific opportunities to see the things that are listed in our evaluation model that we say we value. So I'm excited about that. I'm very grateful for the feedback that has gone into helping to shape this model. And at a session at the unconference today, I learned that more and more districts are recognizing the challenges of their mentor programs and looking for change. So we actually, I think we're a little bit ahead in this area, although we're still very much in the creative kind of struggle to get it through. Sorry, I think that was me. Lastly, I want to tell you about, and I believe Amy will give an update at a future meeting about this week being Peace Celebration at the middle school. We're very fortunate to get a donation of 1,000 Kind bars through an anonymous vendor donor that came through Jim Carey. So the Kind bars, you probably have seen them. They're like little breakfasty granola bars. These are going to be given to all staff on Wednesday as a Fill Their Cup, our first Fill Your Cup activity, which, as you may know, we glazed mugs at the end of the year so that we could be filling their cups throughout the year. So we're going to fill the teachers' cups on Wednesday. And then the middle school is doing a very interesting connection in, I want to thank the students in Heather Mayu and Katie Muskrat's Flex class, because they've found an activity to tie kindness and the bars with butterflies. And I don't want to give too much away, but that will all unfold on Friday during advisories. So we're very grateful for that donation. We approximate it's worth about $1,200. So Superintendent Thompson approved it earlier, actually it was the end of last week. And we have made arrangements through the school nurse for anyone with allergies to get an alternate little snack.
And just keeping in the spirit of donations, the board has asked that anytime donations are made, that we at least acknowledge that here. So I want to acknowledge the Mothers Club, which is constantly supporting our schools. 2 donations, one for $750 for 2 student scholarships to the Ecology School. So 7th graders are going back to Ecology School this November. And then a $500 donation as part of that principal fund to support students who have a need. So thank you to the Mothers Club for their continued support. And then just real quick, just want to highlight, plug October 8th, we're going to have what we call just a volunteer orientation. So anyone who is a returning volunteer, a new volunteer, wants to be a volunteer, we invite them in October 8th. We're going to do this multiple times. So if you can't make the 8th, the information went out in an email I sent today, but come on in. There's lots of information to be shared, and it's a great opportunity just to have a conversation, interface, and put names to faces. Our principals, myself, and our directors will sort of guide that presentation. And then lastly, just we still have some positions open. We're still trying to fill 5th grade STEAM. It's an exciting new position. And then we have a long-term substitute position in math that will be coming available any day now. So if anyone who's interested, looking for a change of career, want to try something new and exciting, please, you can apply online, or you can reach out to myself, to Nicole, or any member of the team. And with that, I will entertain any questions the board might have about the superintendent report.
Great. Okay. Any other questions? Anything? Okay. At this point, we will adjourn the meeting at 9:29 p.m.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.